Welcome, everyone. I'm Paula Kersey. You are at Calliope's Corner, the place where poets and songwriters meet. Today I have two guests. One on the screen here is Margaret Alfano. Hello, Margaret. And her brother, Jimmy Higgins. Both of them are the brother and sister to Thomas Higgins, the late Thomas Higgins, who is well known more as T Crawford Crawford. T Crawford Crawford is the writer, poet, magician. He's been involved in a lot of programs trying to bring audio blogs to people's ears to hear about his life story. And in his death, we have his brother and sister who have decided to bring his words to you. So we are so happy to have them here. And we're going to be talking about T Crawford's book, Lilith in the Pit of Poseidon. And also we're going to be talking about his book, Golden Caskets, Observations and Musings in Verse and Verbiage. So with that, I'm just going to start asking both Marge and Jim some questions here, like particularly tell us a little bit about your brother, Marge and Jim, and I'm going to kind of mush the two questions together. I know I had asked you before a little bit more about also, how did he pass away?
Marge?
Well, my understanding is Tommy had a heart attack. I don't believe they ever did an autopsy on him. I know he had some health problems. He did have this strange formation in his brain that I think allowed him to be as creative as he was. When it's your time, it's your time. And unfortunately, that was Tommy's time. Jimmy, you might know more.
He had an enlarged heart as well as throat cancer, high blood pressure. He always said that if he knew he was going to live this long, he would have taken better care of himself.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think?
That's true. He always felt like he was going to die young.
Which I find interesting in his writings, because in his writings he does write about that. Particularly, though, why do you think he described his writings as verse and verbiage? I thought that was kind of interesting that he used the word verbiage.
Tommy had a way with words. He could have probably given an English teacher a good run for his or her money with his ability to pull words out of the air and just craft magic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
His verse was like poetry, and his verbiage was more thoughtful insights. I think he was creating a mystique to catch, and attract people.
I know we talked before about him including a lot of satire and reflecting on some politics as well in his poetry, but he definitely at times, I can tell by reading his work, very filled with empathy, very filled with dealing with his own fears without embarrassment. Really a strong confessional writer, I felt when I read his work. So what is your reaction when you first heard his audio recordings?
When I first heard Lilith, I'm thinking, where is he going with this? He had several versions of Lilith, but the original version was the only one recorded. And that's the one I heard. In the rewriting of the newer versions, he took out some of the extraneous poems and included more love poems from Golden Caskets. We didn't want to mingle the Golden Casket poems with Lilith, so we just kept them in their original form and went with his voice that we had.
It must have been amazing to finally hear that whole compilation auditorily and say, wow, he did this. He completed this job. I think that what you both are doing, honoring your brother this way, is an amazing act. I just want to make sure that I let the audience know that, because you really have put a lot of your own love and attention into this whole process. Where do you think he may have published his works before or presented his works before?
Angie?
I don't think he published them really. I think he just put up Golden Caskets, Jimmy, didn't you?
I actually,
Tommy was more of a people person, more to do it on stage, I think, ad hoc type of stuff. I think he just loved to entertain and be a philosopher um, about life, his life, and how he saw things.
Yeah.
I don't know if he actually had a plan to publish it. Did he, Jimmy?
actually, the day before he died, he moved out one of his copies of Lilith to Amazon. The day before he died,
That is amazing.
and
Yeah.
it was one of the reworked ones, and we had to remove it because the ending directed them to his web server, which is no longer
In
in
existence.
existence, and told them where to find the Lilith song, which we can't play or include in the paperback. So he was just getting to the point where he was going to get it out publicly.
Let's talk about Lilith more now. And you just mentioned it had more than one version.
Yeah, he had the original recordings, and he felt that some of the poems were inappropriate to a love story, and he removed a couple of those poems from or proses from Lilith, and he put in a couple of love poems to Ellie, to other girls, and he was reworking it to make it a more complete, just love dedicated verses and poems.
Well, just so the audience knows, if anyone wants to go and read Lilith in the if anyone wants to go read Lilith in the Pit of Poseidon, just to let you know, it's clearly an adult production, I would say. Auditorily, there are some interesting pieces. There's also a piece from Lilith, and I have a question about Lilith for you guys. But it's a free-form prose. It's an expression, a unique perspective on one man's ongoing quest to understand the nature of his muse. So I find it a story about a man that just cannot get this girl scraped off the bottom of his shoe. That's how I've described it. But question for you guys, do you think Lilith was a real person?
She was, absolutely. I even met her.
Amazing.
and I think that her complicity in singing the song at the end is informative as not only to her complicity, but Tommy's character that she was railing against.
And all this time, though, Margie, we weren't sure, were we, whether she was real or not?
No, I mean, when first of all, when I heard his voice, I was in Jimmy's car and he played it for me. Because as you know, I had been estranged from my brothers for a while when he died. And, it had been a while since I heard his voice, but I guess with the throat cancer, it was very difficult for me to know that was Tommy's voice. And when Jimmy says, no, that's him, I went, and then I started listening to intonations, and then I recognized my brother in it. However, there may have been a woman named Lilith. I never got to meet her, but in reading it a couple of times, I see different women that Tommy dated over time in there as well. Maybe his muse Lilith was a compilation. He saw in the muse all those women that he really loved and cared about. Tommy dated many women, but I think there were a handful that were special to him that really did, where he gave them part of his heart. I saw it more as a compilation, but Jimmy said, no, there really was someone. So I would love to meet her at some point in time in my life.
It was one person, but her name was Ellen. I mean, Lilith really is a compilation of everybody, but the one person that all this is about is Ellen.
Well, God bless Ellen, because Ellen really did fill the role of a muse. There's no question about it. What would you say was your best liking poem in Lilith? Which one did you enjoy the most?
In Lilith, I today. It's about one line in it is about today is about the tragedy of destiny, and I think that's destiny enters into everybody's life, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Once again, T Crawford behaving as a philosopher, as someone that's looking into the future in his writings. I find that, again, a constant theme in his work. How about you, Margie? What would you say was your favorite thing about Lilith?
Oh, that's a really difficult question for me to really answer. To say which was my favorite part. It flowed. I mean, I can't really pick out any one portion. It was when I listened to it, I just kind of closed my eyes and listened to it. And I listened to Tommy then, because I wasn't recognizing the voice.
Right.
I don't think I have a favorite part. I think I just like to close my eyes and try and visualize some of his imagery there. I think that to me is my favorite, because I can just see my brother and hear him. The words just evoke, I guess, memories for me with him, to a certain extent.
You both.
I don't really say I have a favorite part. I think it's the spirit of Tommy alive that I love in Lilith.
I want to mention that there's a poem, chapter 25, Again She Haunts Me, which I feel describes the entire encompassing of who Lilith was. And he describes Lilith as, she is my sister, my brother, my mother, and my
father,
child.
my children, yeah.
So he
She's
did
everything.
He's everything. And you guys were everything to him. For him to include that as a line in his poem. In case you're just joining us, we're at Calliope's Corner, with the place where poets and songwriters meet. I'm here with sister and brother James Higgins and Margie Alfano with us. We're talking about T Crawford and his books, Lilith in the Pit of Poseidon and Golden Caskets, which we have a copy of here. If you could just throw it up there for the audience. Observations in Musings, in Verse and Verbiage. Let's talk about Golden Caskets now. After reading this body of work, what do you think is the reason why he titled it that way?
I think the Golden Caskets poems have an existential quality to them. He always, as I said, knew if he knew he was going to live that long, he would take better care of himself. And I'm sure he was surprised that he did live that long. And
yeah.
To me, when I read Golden Caskets, he talks about, for the first time that I remember him ever saying it, maybe Jimmy, you were, in his later years, you were closer to him, but Tommy didn't believe for many years in, I think, life after death. And clearly in Golden Caskets, his mind changed over time. He speaks to immortality.
Absolutely.
He speaks to thanking God. Now, which God he's thanking, that was his God. But I found that quite eye-opening, where he says, okay, Golden Caskets, but it's really not the end. Maybe that's why it's golden, because it opens a doorway.
And I definitely think, Margie, you're onto something there, because I felt the same way after reading several of his poems. The Kiss of the Cobra, for example, he beckons death to be quick in that poem. In the poem Indeed, he cautions about death and its long goodbyes. He talks about it without pomp and circumstances, and he actually uses that word, pomp and circumstance. Allow me to go to the next place. What's a part of Golden Caskets that either of you would say is your favorite? And I'm sure, Margie, you're going to say the same thing, maybe, about just being able to hear your brother's voice. It was so important to you.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, I couldn't recognize the voice, but when I closed my eyes and I knew it was him, I recognized the intonations. Tommy was a performer, first and foremost. He had different personas. T Crawford
Was one of
apparently
them.
was another one of his. But oddly enough, there were one or two poems in Golden Caskets that I kind of love, and one is the Mathematics of the Mundane, because I have degrees in math, so it kind of it caught my eye and I read it
Right.
and I
Well,
loved it.
he equates the Pythagorean theory and the Euclidean
I
theory to
know.
life. It's amazing.
It was, yeah, 'cause Tommy knew I loved math. Oddly enough, we were at opposite ends of the universe in certain things. Tommy was creative, and everything else, and he would say things, and I would just counter with science, because I was the math and scientist, chemistry in the family. So whenever he would say something, like he would talk about like dating artifacts and no one knows how old it is, and I went, yeah, of course it can be dated. And I would just like start spouting like science at him, and he would look at me like, just, why are you spoiling my run here with the science? What are you doing to me? So, but oddly enough, the one poem I liked is Shades of Gray. Okay, because everyone talks about black and white, right, wrong, but the world is not like that.
Yeah.
The world is gray, and you have to find the beauty in gray. Gray is not a great color. It's not white. It's not black. It's not color. But you have to find the beauty in gray, because that's what life is. So that one's the one I like the most.
Jim, how about yourself?
Well, along those same lines, I would say it's a toss-up between Complex Fools Are in Great Demand and the Mathematics of the Mundane. They are related through his perspective on mundanity, and he also mentions that in some of his other poems, such as the Bordello of Times.
So he just talks about the way life is. It's the way life is. Share one of the pieces. I know you wanted to.
Okay, I'll read Complex Fools Are in Great Demand. Just so that there's no politicization of this. It was written 15 years ago. So
basically, some things never change.
Right, right. Complex fools are in great demand, for universal laws are not formed from the particulars, the parallels, or the perpendiculars of any one given conclusion. Even great thinkers, every great thinker is a moron in the eyes of an idiot. Idiots all who worship the lunatic who has shown them the roads. Pull the string, make a puppet of common sense. Take liberties with the laws of universal logic. Teach the children that wit and wisdom now stand in disgrace. Teach the children that wit and wisdom are no longer trustworthy. Let those who are mundane rise through the ranks to eventually become king, so that they may respond to silly questions with foolish answers. Then let the king's mediocrity and senility become part of the joke. Then let the king's mediocrity and the senility become part of the ecstasy. In the school of comparatively inconsequential, we seek great advances. In the school of comparatively inconsequential, we seek great adventures in learning. In the school of the comparatively inconsequential, we seek great things. We seek to calculate our own irrelevance. Then we conceal our findings so as to bolster our own self-worth. Complex fools are in great demand. They are needed for a comprehensive study of all that is absurd. Needed for the comprehensive study into the plurality of all that is fictitious. Endless and pointless probabilities, endless and pointless possibilities, infinite in scope, eternal in nature, sublime in mediocrity. We all plagiarize our comparative creativity from that which is divine. The gods incognito sweep the halls. The gods incognito paint the walls. As students bask in their unseen glow, in their unseen glories, they fill classes of art on the art of splitting hairs and slicing soup. While the gods incognito who sweep the halls and paint the walls, they dwell in the darkness. The school of comparatively inconsequential is very important, for complex fools are in great demand, while every great thinker is a moron in the eyes of an idiot.
Once again, he's teaching. He's trying to get people to, hey, by the way, this is the way it is. And be aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I'm going to read my favorite. My favorite is In the Cathedral of Humanity. And I picked this one because I just love the first line of it. And it's like an Ars Poetica piece, meaning he is talking about the joy of poetry in this piece. So this is one of my favorites. In the Cathedral of Humanity. Poems are the theater of the heart. Hallmarks on high, their words house the hopes, house the dreams, house the heartaches, heartbreaks, and agonies of the writer. They declare the divinity or the mundanity of the mind's eye. They hold the joys and the jubilations, the prayers and the platitudes of the dreamer. They attempt to define all that is divine within the poet. They attempt to detail the destiny and or the diversity of mankind. Sweet, wonderful, romantic, painful poetry. Its essence, the earthly manifestation of all that is majestic, and the essence of the earthy manifestation of all that is divine. In essence, poems are the theater of the heart, in the cathedral of humanity. In the Cathedral of Humanity is, to me, just encompassing.
May I read one? Sorry.
Is total encompassing of all the poetry of the entire book. Please go right ahead.
I would love to read Tommy's last prayer. Almighty God, we thank thee that amid all the perplexity and the apparent confusion of life, thou hast not left us to wander unguided and alone, but thou hast set up ancient landmarks to guide us in thine ways. Thou hast given us the light to illuminate our path. Thou hast placed within us the call of immortality, eternal life. Thou dost ever support us with thine everlasting arm. Even in the dark and rough places of life, we are never forsaken or forgotten by thee. Thy love always responds to the deepest yearnings of our hearts. We thank thee that thou hast revealed the truth of immortality. We thank thee again for the truth of our immortality, enabling us to look upon death as a transition from mortal to immortal beings, with the knowledge the grave is a thoroughfare leading to thine eternal presence, where we may reach the fulfillment of life.
You just
This
heard.
is where I think Tommy's mind was at the end.
I jumped over what you said.
Understanding that
I'm
it's a
so
doorway.
sorry. I just jumped over what you said. So can you repeat that again for us?
I said, I think this is where Tommy's head was at the very end. He understood that there is an immortality to life. It says it here. I never thought he would agree like that or think that way, but I guess in his final years, maybe being part of the Masons awakened him to that. But I think that's a beautiful poem.
If you're with us right now, you just heard Margie Alfano, sister of T Crawford, reading his poem, his last prayer poem. And we also heard another piece read by Jim Higgins. Jim, what was the name of that poem again?
Complex fools are in great demand.
Complex fools are in great demand. And I read another piece that I very much enjoyed called In the Cathedral of Humanity. We're going to have to end the show now, so I just want to ask a few more questions before we go. What's next for you guys with the plans to move ahead with getting T Crawford's work out there and share his legacy?
Well, I just received a small laptop from his girlfriend, and she moved and found it. And Chris pulled off a whole host of treasures. One of them, he called his third book, Sex in the Cemetery. So there are a lot of good pieces in there, and we'll be tidying that up and getting it out soon.
Moving ahead with some more of his work and getting his work out to the ears of the public.
And I think we have some audios there that weren't in Lilith. I think I haven't found it, but I think there's an audio of Mathematics of the Mundane in his own voice. So
That would be awesome.
So
Yes, that would be a treasure for you, Margie, particularly. So T. Crawford wanted his poems to be heard. He even said in one of his poems titled Upon Morning Sky, nightingale's songs shall know of it, see it, read it, translate it, and understand it. So I think Margie and Jim, you certainly are honoring that prophecy. You can look for T. Crawford's books, Lilith in the Pit of Poseidon and Golden Caskets, Observations and Musings in Verge and Verbiage. You can find them on Amazon. This recording was done with the assistance of Christopher Carroll at Mantra Recording Studios. So I want to thank him. Thank you both for joining us and sharing in T. Crawford's work and sharing in the work you're doing to keep his legacy and prophecy alive. Thanks for being with us on Calliope's Corner. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marge.